Well, good evening. Good evening, Matthieu from the Cordon Bleu. Welcome to Kristin Syltevik from Oxney Organic. She's going to talk to us about her experience, show us 3 wines. I will start straight away, but before I start, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them through the chat, and we'll endeavor to answer them. So, without any further delay, so Kristin, your estate is called Oxney Organic. Could you please tell us why you decided to go organic, and what is actually organic viticulture, or how do you do it in England?
Well, we started in 2012, and we already had an organic farm. So for us, it was a very easy decision. I eat and drink everything organic. I can't imagine being a non-organic farmer or a non-organic winemaker. It has environmental benefits. It has benefits for people who eat and drink organic food and drinks. And it's our philosophy for sure.
So you were, when you bought the farm, was it already an organic farm, or did you have to go through a conversion or something?
So the farm where the vineyard is, we bought in 2009, and we started converting in 2010. So when I planted the first vines in 2012, that farm was already organic.
And there was no vineyard?
No vineyard. And I started from scratch. They were just fields of grass. They had sheep, and so it was starting from the beginning. Lots of people who start an organic vineyard often plant into non-organic soil, and then the first 2 years, which is part of the conversion process, is when the vines grow up, and they do that. But we started with organic soil, and
So you didn't have to go through the three years of conversion. So straight away you could go to. So is it easy to be organic in England, you think?
No, and particularly now, this summer, 2021 summer, it's been absolutely awful. It's been so hot and rain, and all the other years we've been cropping. We've had grapes. It's gone really well. We do get frost in the spring, so that's the key. But we managed to keep the disease level pretty minimal, and just by being very attentive and being quite creative. But this year, the downy mildew has hit us quite badly. So we're going to pick some stuff, but probably we won't pick the whole vineyard this year.
I guess the fact you have a little bit of Séval might be helpful as well, or did the Séval?
So we have 3 acres of Séval Blanc, which is a savior. They're doing incredibly well, and they're absolutely oblivious to any disease pressure. So that's incredible.
Fair enough. So how does your philosophy in the vineyard influence the way you make your wine?
Yes. So obviously in the vineyard, it's very low intervention, and that follows through into the winery. So we work really focus very much on very reduced SO2 use of SO2. Minimal fining, if anything, etc. So that's the philosophy. And this, obviously, the first wine we're tasting is probably a good example of that, because it's also, we have done some before, we've done some zero dosage magnums, but this is also our first zero dosage wine. So I quite like the idea of that. Nothing has been done with it.
Nothing has been added, basically.
No.
So, except this for the second fermentation. But so it's, I guess, everything that you have that you purchase is organic. So the yeast as well for the second fermentation is organic. Or do you manage to isolate your strain? Or?
So we started working on the native yeasts in the vineyard, and we have used those for some cuvées. But this year we're actually doing a big study on capturing which part of the vineyard where the natural yeasts are, the better ones we should use, etc., etc. So that's a study we're doing this summer. or this autumn. But yes, it's for sure. Yeah.
No, because for the one who's not familiar with English sparkling wine, all of your wine are traditional method sparkling wine.
Sure, yeah.
Do you want to explain briefly what that means, or do you want me?
No, absolutely. Sure, yeah. So for instance, this is actually from 2019. So it's really young for a traditional method wine. So some of these two others are from 2017. So we picked the grapes in October 2019. We made wines. We then blend together in the spring, summer, and we then bottle it. And we bottle it in one of these bottles, and we add additional yeasts. So there is a second fermentation happening inside the bottle, and that is what produces the bubbles. And in addition, of course, you have the sediments from the second fermentation, which sits inside the bottle. Some of these wines have been sitting on there. It's called lees on their sediments for 36 months. This was very young on purpose. And so you get the kind of the yeast overtones and the yeast characteristics, which, sparkling wines and champagnes and etc. are so well known for, where you get that kind of bready, yeasty, autolytic flavors. So yes, it's, I kind of explain it's like double cooked chips.
It's not triple cooked, it's just double cooked.
Double cooked, yeah. So 2 fermentations, the last one inside the bottle, which is different from Prosecco.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And I guess so this one is 0 dosage.
Yeah.
So I guess once you remove all the yeast and sediment, instead of adding some sugar and a little bit of wine, you're not adding anything. So most sparkling wine, I guess, would be brut. So brut means that up to 12 grams of sugar has been added to them. But in this one, it's following your philosophy through of low intervention, and no sugar has been added to it at the end, basically.
No, we just top it up with the same wine.
So it's really.
Would you like to try it?
I have tried it. I've been naughty. No, because the thing is with 0 dosage, sometimes the wine can be potentially quite aggressive, but. I guess with this one, because of first of all, because it's Pinot Noir, it's quite ripe, quite juicy. And was 19 as a vintage for you? Was it quite ripe? Or?
It was fine, actually. 2019 was an all right year. And, I look fondly back on these years where we haven't had a 2021 year. And of course, when you think about a vine has its buds created the previous year. And of course, 2018 was a real stonking year for us in the UK. It was an incredible year. Very warm, lovely growing conditions. And so the buds we had in 2019 were from 2018. So we started on a good foot. We didn't have any frost. It was a pretty good summer. And of course, this is our best fruit. This is our top range of wines. And this is, the best fruit from the vineyard.
Yeah, because as well, I was looking at the Pinot Noir, it's 12% of alcohol. So it's slightly a bit riper than the other two that are 11, which means that you can really feel the ripe fruit and the freshness. It's not, sometimes, especially in England, it can be quite ambitious to go with no dosage at all.
Yes.
But this sported very well. Right? Well done. Right? So,
and releasing it this early too, is because there is in English wine, and probably also in other wine regions, there is a bit of snobbery about how long the wines are sitting on the lees. Long discussion between me and Salvatore, who's our winemaker, about when we should release it. And he was adamant that, the freshness, the fruit, we need to capture it now. And the longer it sits on lees, you get the autolytic characters, but you don't, you lose the freshness, you lose the fruit. And what is a sparkling rosé all about? It's all about fruit.
Fruit and fun and being pink. Huh?
Yeah.
No, but
it's delicious, isn't it?
Oh, it's really lovely. Yeah, it's No, and it's not trying to mimicking anything else as well. It's just very ripe, juicy Pinot Noir. It's very well made.
It's an English wine, and that's what we're trying to make. Definitely trying to make English wine. Not trying to make
champagne. Yeah.
No.
Fair enough. No, but which red variety do you find the most interesting to work with, and why is that?
Oh, that's so interesting. Because I love them all. Obviously, I love the Chardonnay, which we're going to taste later. But this one here has a fair amount of Pinot Meunier, and this is our blend. Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, Chardonnay. Sorry, this is that.
Yeah, no, sorry.
This one. Mixed it up.
I mixed it up. So basically, I do apologize, everybody. I've been playing musical bottles for Kristin. So this is the rosé.
Yeah.
This is the blonde. This is the classic.
Yeah. And
this is the blonde noir. Yeah. So now, Kristin is actually going to show you the right bottle. So it's my fault. Huh?
So this is our kind of classic blend. So this has Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay. And I love the Pinot Meunier. It loves our side. So I haven't got it here today because we've run out. But
which is a good thing.
We had 100% Pinot Meunier, which is a Blanc de Noir.
Yeah.
Did you ever try that, ever?
I think because you've been making it for 2 years, no?
No, just 1 year.
Okay,
we released it in December last year.
So I haven't tried it, no.
Absolutely incredible, really interesting, 100% Pinot Meunier. That is I'm very fond of that grape. Yeah. But I love them all, obviously. I think Pinot Noir thrives in the UK. It does incredibly well. But just not this year.
What's the difference for you? What makes Pinot Meunier stand out with Chardonnay or with Pinot Noir? Why do
I like it?
Why do you like it? Do you like it? Sorry.
I love it because it's just has a very special kind of deep flavor. It's it's kind of everything. It's fruity, but it's also has a kind of extra special kind of texture. Yeah. So
and your set, you said the grapes are good enough to stand on their own for.
Yeah, absolutely. And people love it. We actually had the 100% Pinot Meunier for Christmas last year. I know. So I have to go and grab myself another bottle before we run out.
You still have got some for you?
No, I better go and get some. Yeah, to get a box.
And what does Pinot Meunier, in the blend here, what do you think Pinot Meunier brings to the party?
It just, it gives, I think Pinot Noir is kind of spicy and fun and, full of raspberries and all that cherry stuff. And I think Pinot Meunier just kind of binds everything together. It gives a certain kind of focus in a way. It's always been used traditionally it's been used as a good blending component, but we showed that you can actually make a wine from it in itself. But it's savory notes. I think it's has citrus and dried fruit. It's kind of a Christmas cake kind of flavor. I think Pinot Meunier. That's how I think about.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
Pinot Meunier, and that's why it was so good for Christmas. Like Christmas cake in a glass. Should we try the classic?
Well, sorry. Again, I've been naughty. I tried it. Huh? And actually, questions are starting to creep up as well.
Oh yeah.
So not creep is probably the wrong word. So, but you definitely will be able to answer the first one. What is the biggest challenge for an organic grower in the UK? I would add
the English weather.
The weather.
Yeah, and we are 6 miles from the English Channel, so we are very south.
So it's a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a brilliant thing because we're so far south. Our growing degree days are quite high up there. Here in the south of England, obviously, is the optimum place to grow grapes in the UK. The further north you go, the more challenging it is. It's also very site specific. Also how high you are, if you're going up to 100 meters or 200 meters, it's the weather changes. So we're 17 meters above sea level, and that all their kind of tiny details matter so much. The weather is the challenge, and it hasn't actually been a problem so far for us, but this year has been a challenge.
Because you are talking about frost, so you have a kind of hills before between the vineyard and the coast, or is it why you have frost sometimes? Or?
So I think all English vineyards have frost. The spring frost is cruel. A lot of us had a little bit of frost last year because how we had such an extraordinary good spring, right? Everyone talks about how hot Easter was, and of course the vines hadn't, normally don't start budding until quite later on, after that period. But they started so early, and then in May we had a series of frosts, like several days. We had series of frosts, and so last, so that's a challenge in the UK too. But that's also weather, right?
No, fair enough. Yeah.
But I think frost is fine. You just get a lower yield. It's absolutely fine. It's the disease levels which we've had this year, which has been my biggest challenge so far in having the vineyard.
No, fair enough. Yeah, no. And,
don't want to dwell too much on that. Let's be happy.
No, but the wine are great anyway. So as long as you still manage to have to make some great wine. Yeah. And actually, there was a question as well that I saw before about what you branch into. Well, you actually I know part of the answer, but have you ever so you're making cider?
I guess. Cider. We make a second fermentation cider.
So. So this, do you buy the apple?
Yeah,
or
we buy the apples, and so it's made like we make an apple wine or a cider. I'm not really allowed to say apple wine, and then you bottle it and you get it through a second fermentation in bottle.
So you had yeast and sugar again, and you get second fermentation in the bottle. Yeah. So you don't. So you.
It's really popular.
Yeah, no, but it tastes great. I've got it at home, to be honest. Yeah. So. But so it's literally the same way your sparkling wine.
Yeah, basically. Totally. Same. We used when we the yeast we use, we don't use natural yeast for second fermentation, so it's the same yeast, and it's exactly the same.
And do you disgorge it as well, or do you leave the sediment in the bottle for the cider? Disgorge it. Okay.
We do disgorge it. Yeah. So it's quite a high-end cider.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And you should drink it in a flute, and it's a party cider.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
And another question: what made you want to get into wine, and why the UK?
The UK. So everyone's probably noticed my accent. So I'm Norwegian. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair,
we obviously had this.
I guess people. Yeah. I guess people notice your accent less than mine without being rude. But. And you don't sound like an advert for IKEA either, huh? So that's fine.
No. So obviously I'm Norwegian and I lived in the UK for a really long time. So that's why, this is my home. I live here. So, and it was actually a trip to France that made us. We have a camper van and we were camping in France. And I was coming out of my previous career and I was looking around and I saw all these lovely vineyards and I thought, maybe I can have a vineyard. So I got home to the UK, called the Service Association, and they said, you must speak to this man called Kristin Syltevik. He's a great guy. He can help you. And so I called him, and he's been helping us ever since. Yeah, he's a great guy. So it was a moment in France which gave me the inspiration.
Fair enough. And I mean, I guess it was not a moment in Norway that gave you the impression.
No, there are a couple of small vineyards in Norway. They're in very sheltered spots, and Sweden have quite a few actually. Yeah, well, have a few.
But for Sweden, most of it is ice wine at the moment. Right. But it's it's funny. But I guess it makes more sense at the moment. Yeah. To make it here, maybe one day.
Yeah. No, maybe I'll go home to the west coast of Norway and make some wine there. But so it was just a moment of inspiration. It's a second career. I used to work in PR. I sold my PR agency, and I was thinking about what am I going to do. And there I was. I had this moment of inspiration on the west coast of France.
Fair enough.
But this is obviously we spoke about the Pinot Meunier, so we do.
That it's it is a bit more vinous. It is a bit spicier, a bit more rounded. But it's quite interesting because, of course, sometimes people might think that you should taste the white before the rosé. The reason why we tasted the rosé first was because of the zero dosage. So the rosé is actually slightly leaner than this one. This one is a bit richer, a bit futter. It's really drinking nicely.
So you should kind of work your way up and end up with the highest dosage or the highest sugar wine.
Highest dosage or highest body or concentration. But the rosé is really feels much fresher and so. But no, the cuvée is really, as you say, is a bit more complex, a bit fuller in flavor. But do you at home kind of keep some of these wine to see how they're going to evolve in the future? Or
we have some stillages in the wine store, which are always in the way, and they're full of old wine. It's like every time I have to get some pallets out, I have to move them. It's irritating. But so when we see the end of a cuvée, or even maybe at the very beginning, we kind of chuck a couple of boxes in our stillage.
Because I guess this can age very well actually, because you have a quite lovely structure. It's very fresh, but it's not. It's definitely not over, not too overdone, not too rich. It's really lovely.
So this has had the one we're drinking now. We riddle and disgorge. Shall I explain riddling and disgorging?
Well, if you want.
Yeah, because you talk about second fermentation.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously riddling is when we have a wine sitting with lots of yeast sediments in the bottle, and we need to get rid of those. So we turn them with a machine. We turn them upside down over a week, and all the little sediments end up in the tip of the bottle, and then we get rid of those through it's called disgorging, as you know. But if people are watching, and we riddle and disgorge over time. So this has had 36 months on
the lease.
On lease, yeah.
No, all the better for it. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah, yeah.
And what have you been focusing on the last few years in terms of winemaking?
So a big kind of mission, but obviously when you start in a new industry, although I've been supported so well by the people who work with me and also, other people in the industry, you have to kind of take small steps. So obviously we're organic, we're very low intervention, but also, over the last few years, we've been kind of pushing the borders in terms of the barriers, in terms of kind of, adding preservatives like, obviously SO2 is what I'm talking about. And also, discovering, we talked about our yeast project. So that's, the kind of boundaries we're pushing at the moment. But of course, there is a moment where you don't want the wine to be unsuitable for selling. You don't want to have in your gorgeous restaurants, a wine that is off.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to drink vinegar, you buy vinegar.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't buy sparkling wine.
So, but of course, the reason why there is this discussion about SO2 is, in my view, primarily also because a lot of the kind of the things people do with wine is takes a lot of the flavors away. So if you fine a wine, it doesn't just take out what you're trying to get rid of, but it also takes away flavor and interest and all that kind of loveliness. So that's another reason why we don't do much. It's because the less you do, the better the wine.
Okay, yeah. No. So and is there a link with this Chardonnay?
A link.
With do you use less sulfur for the Chardonnay or not?
So I've been, it's interesting. I have quite a lot of people who call and talk to me about natural wine, and I'm like, what is natural wine? And obviously, natural wine is where they haven't used external yeast, wort yeast. You don't add any SO2, etc. But I was looking at one of the lab reports for one of these wines. I can't remember what, and there's 2 milligrams of free SO2 in one of these, which is, that's very tight. That's tight.
But the thing is, with SO2 also, yeast, when they transform the sugar into alcohol, naturally produce SO2. So quite often on label, you end up having, it said no added SO2, no added sulfite on the front label. And on the back label, it will say contain sulfites.
Yes.
So for some reason, sometimes it's because it's too complicated in terms of administrative because you have to justify a lot, to give a lot of justification for not using it.
Yes.
So it might be just easier to write content sulfite in the back, but it is naturally produced as well. So
yes, totally,
So this is, and 2 is very low. And
there's other foods on the market, you know. Is it in dried fruit?
So dried fruit. Yeah. So, I mean, if you ask, well, we have quite, and water, and a lot of products, it's a E220, I think, memory, but it's E220, 221, 222. But most people, if you ask them what color is a dried apricot, will come up with orange.
Yeah.
And then if you show them a non-sulfur dried apricot, they're quite surprised because it's the same color of the sofa.
Yeah.
So it's brown, basically, with no sulfur. So we do consume a lot of sulfur without knowing, to be fair.
Totally, absolutely.
But
it's just become a kind of big deal in the wine industry. But of course, you know, I do understand that because also, you know, when you add, you know, it can kind of cover a ton of mistakes, you know, you probably don't have to be so clean in the winery, you know, all of those kind of things. So but let's try it. So this is the Chardonnay. So we called it Chardonnay instead of calling it Blanc. Sorry.
Fair enough.
As we're not in France, we're in England.
No, but also, to be honest, it makes more sense because in England, you do have Cheval Blanc, which is a white grape variety.
Yeah.
So people used to call Blanc de Blanc, English sparkling wine with Cheval Blanc in it.
Yeah.
So this is probably better to say just Chardonnay to avoid people thinking that you have one of these grape variety in there.
Yeah.
But
so you think that's a bit naughty to call a sparkling wine with Cheval in it a Blanc de Blanc?
I think it is, personally, but that's me.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get letter of complaint. Somebody's waiting for me outside the restaurants.
So this is, by the way, we talked about this being zero dosage. These have around 5 each. So very
So
low.
they're quite low,
Yeah.
And would you ever consider organic or biodynamic or natural? Somebody's asking. For natural, you're kind of halfway through, but biodynamic would...
They're further than organic.
Yeah.
Well, some of the practices we do in the vineyard are kind of
same.
Coming on to biodynamic. Some of the practices we do in the winery is, you know, very much, you know, the natural winemaking, unfiltered wine, natural yeast, you know, zero SO2, etc., etc. So we are, I guess, but I don't necessarily want to kind of hang my hat on a particular peg at the moment. So yeah, there's some stuff within the biodynamic which I don't quite, I find I don't quite understand. So yeah, I'll stick with what I'm doing at the moment.
And also, I guess sometimes it's putting a label on it, calling it can be maybe just sometimes can be more of a marketing plot rather than making the best wine you want or you can.
Totally. Yes.
So, so you do have actually quite a lot of producers who practice biodynamic but never mention it on the label or never communicate about it because for them, making a good wine is more important than making.
Yes, I think I'm probably biodynamic with some of the biodynamic wines I know. You know what I mean? So I would try to pick the best practices and.
So we have a question from Viachen. So as a zero dosage rosé, do you aim for zero dosage rosé for every vintage, or was it because of the quality of the grape-based wine for the 2019?
Yes. So the previous one we had the same series we had in 2016, a rosé and sparkling rosé like that, and that had a dosage. Yeah. So it's on an individual. And for instance, this the classic cuvee, the classic blend, we did some magnums. They were zero dosage. So you know, it's
because you expect people to keep them for a bit longer, maybe, or
it was just perfect for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just right because the way the magnum changes over time is so different from this
the bottle,
form factor. Yeah, that it was perfect and so easy. I love it.
So you have less bottling to do.
Much less disgorging to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Well, obviously we disgorge, but it's a quicker job.
But it's I don't know. Thank you very much. And what would you recommend eating? So I guess it would have to be organic.
Clearly, it has to be. You know, if you're in the UK, you know, have the Blanc de Blanc, have the Chardonnay with some fish and chips. I mean, what can be better than that?
Exactly.
Nice and greasy, and this is obviously super linear. This is gorgeous, right? Yeah, I love it.
No, it's really drinking very well at the moment.
Yeah. but fish. A lot of our wines are quite kind of big wines, so you can often have them with food. I had a French family visit the vineyard, and they said they always had champagne in that instance, but of course we can translate that to, with cheese.
No, with cheese, it's definitely kind of a 4-wheel drive. With cheese, it works with pretty much everything, which is
totally.
great.
So this is, the classic blend. Wouldn't that be brilliant with some amazing organic cheese? And wouldn't this be amazing with raspberry tart?
Okay, no, fair enough. Yeah. With raspberry tart in as well, because it's quite fruity. I'm always worried about the zero dosage, but it's quite funny for zero dosage. It really tastes almost as if there is one.
Yeah.
I know there is none, but it's so fruity, so ripe that it's really, really impressive.
Yeah. Good.
But I'm afraid time is probably up.
Yeah.
But it was really great. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your wine with us this evening. And
thank you very
cheers.
much.
Skål,
yeah.
no?
Skål. Cheers.
Cheers.